The day that changed everything for Jasmine Taylor began like any other. The autumn sky over the small town of Lakeside, Virginia, was a deep blue that contrasted with the orange leaves of the tree. At 26, Jasmine was a dedicated student at Lakeside Community College and a single mother to Zoe, her 16-year-old daughter, a bright and determined teenager who had inherited her mother's strong spirit. Jasmine had enlisted in the United States Navy right after high school, seeking a path of stability and opportunity. Now, as a petty officer first class, she divided her time between her responsibilities at the nearby naval base and her nursing studies. The young woman dreamed of one day becoming a high-ranking military, a dream she kept alive despite all the obstacles life had presented her with. That Wednesday morning, Jasmine woke before dawn, as usual. She proudly donned her naval uniform, prepared breakfast for Zoe, and reviewed the day's schedule with her daughter. It was a routine they both knew well. Zoe would go to Lakeside High School, while Jasmine would head to the base and then to her evening classes on the university campus. "Remember, I have a meeting with the commander today, so I'll pick you up a little later from school," Jasmine said, adjusting her uniform tie in the entryway mirror. "I'll be there around 4:30. "Okay, Mom, I have a debate club meeting anyway," Zoe replied, throwing her backpack over her shoulder. The teenager was the spitting image of her mother, the same expressive eyes, the same determined posture, the same curly hair that Zoe wore in elaborate, unlike Jasmine's, which she always kept tied up in a professional bun because of military regulation. What none of them could have predicted was that just hours later, their lives would be turned upside down by an incident that would expose the underlying racial tensions in Lakeside, a town that prided itself on its apparent community. Harmony. Jasmine's day had been intense. The meeting with the commander had taken longer than expected. She was being considered for a promotion, but needed to complete some additional training requirement. Hurriedly leaving the base, she drove through the afternoon traffic, constantly checking her watch. It was 4:28 p.m. when her phone rang. The number for Lakeside High School flashed on the car screen. "Petty Officer Taylor speaking," she replied, keeping her eyes on the road. "Miss Taylor, this is Patricia Dawson, secretary at Lakeside High." The voice on the other end of the line sounded tense. "There's been an incident involving Zoe. We need you to come to school immediately." Jasmine's heart raced. "Is she hurt? What happened?" "She's in the infirmary right now. There was a disagreement with one of our security officers. Please come as soon as possible." "I'm 3 minutes away," said Jasmine, stepping on the gas. Meanwhile, at school, Zoe sat in the infirmary, a cold compress on her scraped elbow, silent tears streaming down her face. These weren't tears of physical pain, but of humiliation and suppressed. The incident had occurred in the main hallway, witnessed by dozens of students who were now sharing videos of what happened on their cell phones. It all started when Zoe and her friend Layla were on their way to the debate club. The two were excitedly discussing the theme of the upcoming state tournament, criminal justice reform, a topic Zoe was passionately researching. In the crowded hallway, a group of older students blocked their way. Instead of waiting, Zoe tried to pass, accidentally brushing against the shoulder of Ryan Matthews, the mayor's son and captain of the school's football team. "Hey, watch where you're going," Ryan complained, turning around abruptly. "The hallway belongs to everyone," Zoe replied, continuing on her way. Ryan, unaccustomed to being ignored, grabbed Zoe's arm. "I'm talking to you, and I'm telling you to let go of me," she said, pulling her arm away. The situation quickly caught the attention of security officer Chuck Brennan, a middle-aged former police officer who had been working at the school for only 3 months. Brennan quickly approached. "What's going on here?" he asked, placing himself between the teenagers. "Nothing," Zoe replied. "We're late for the debate club." "She pushed me," Ryan interjected, his voice thick with feigned indignation. "It was an accidental bump," Zoe defended herself, "and he grabbed me." Officer Brennan glanced from one to the other. The dynamic was clear to any observer. Ryan, the privileged white athlete, versus Zoe, the black scholarship student. Unfortunately, Brennan was not an impartial observer. "You need to learn to respect others," he told Zoe. "Come with me to the principal's office." "I'm late for the club," Zoe protested. "Why can he go, but I can't?" "Because I'm telling you to," Brennan replied, gripping Zoe's arm with unnecessary force. What happened next was captured by at least 7 cell phone cameras. Zoe tried to break free, insisting she hadn't done anything wrong. Brennan, interpreting her resistance as a challenge to authority, pushed her toward the stairs. Zoe stumbled, lost her balance, and fell down the marble steps, hitting her elbow and knee before landing on the lower landing. The hallway fell silent for a moment before erupting in indignant voices. Layla rushed to her friend's aid, while other students confronted Brennan verbally, cell phones pointed at him. "You pushed her! That's assault! We're going to report you!" Brennan, realizing the situation had spiraled out of control, called for reinforcements over the radio. "I need backup in the west aisle." Unruly student and hostile crowd. Exactly 3 minutes after the incident, when Zoe had already been taken to the infirmary and Brennan was trying to disperse the crowd of indignant students, the main doors of Lakeside High opened. Jasmine Taylor entered the building still wearing her full United States Navy uniform with insignia indicating her rank and decoration. Her face was composed, but her eyes burned with an intensity that made the reception staff recoil. "My daughter, Zoe Taylor. Where is she?" Jasmine asked, her voice controlled but firm. "The infirmary," replied the receptionist, pointing to the corridor. "Second door on the right." Jasmine followed the indicated direction, but stopped when she saw the commotion in the west hallway. A group of students were recording with their cell phones while a security officer gestured nervously, trying to get them to disperse. Something about that scene triggered her maternal instincts. Changing direction, Jasmine approached the group. Her uniform naturally cut through the students, who whispered as they watched her pass. "That's Zoe's mom," one said. "She's in the Navy," another commented. Officer Brennan, seeing a uniformed woman approaching, assumed she was some kind of official reinforcement. His relief lasted only seconds. "Officer, I am Petty Officer First Class Jasmine Taylor of the United States Navy. I have been informed of an incident involving my daughter, Zoe Taylor. Can you explain what happened?" Brennan's face visibly paled. Before he could respond, a student, Layla, stepped forward. He pushed Zoe down the stairs. "Ma'am, we have it all recorded." Other students confirmed it, some holding up their cell phones to show the videos. Jasmine maintained her military composure, though her heart was racing with a combination of maternal concern and indignation. "Where is my daughter now?" she asked. "In the infirmary," Layla replied. "I was going there when I saw you come in." Jasmine nodded. "Thank you. Officer Brennan, please don't leave. I'll come back to talk after I check on my daughter's condition." In the infirmary, Zoe looked up when the door opened, her face lighting up at the sight of her mother. "Mom!" she exclaimed, trying to get up from the stretcher. Jasmine hugged her daughter carefully, quickly examining the visible injury: a scraped elbow, a swollen knee, and what appeared to be the beginning of a bruise on her shoulder. "What happened, darling?" Between sobs, Zoe recounted the incident. The school nurse confirmed that the injuries were minor, but recommended a visit to the doctor to rule out any internal injury. "I want you to stay here one more minute," Jasmine said, holding her daughter's hand. "I'll take care of this." When Jasmine returned to the hallway, the situation had escalated. Principal Malcolm Thompson was now present, as were 2 other school security guards. Brennan seemed nervous, alternating between justifying his actions to the principal and casting apprehensive glances at the students who were still filming everything. "Mr. Thompson," Jasmine called, her voice echoing in the now quieter hallway. "I'm Zoe Taylor's mother, and I'd like to understand why." "An employee of this institution physically assaulted my daughter, Principal Thompson, a man who valued the school's reputation above all else, tried to take control of the situation." "Sub-Officer Taylor, let's discuss this in my office." "I'm sure that, with all due respect, sir," Jasmine interrupted, "my daughter was assaulted in front of dozens of witnesses. There's nothing to discuss in particular. What needs to be discussed is this school's policy regarding student safety, especially for Black students." A murmur of approval ran through the watching students. Brennan stepped forward, her face red with indignation. "This has nothing to do with race. The girl was being insubordinate and—" "Officer Brennan," Jasmine interrupted, "insubordination does not justify physical aggression. As a member of the military, I know exactly what constitutes appropriate use of force. Pushing a teenage girl down a flight of stairs does not qualify under any circumstances. At that moment, the main doors opened again and 3 people entered, 2 women and a man, all wearing naval uniform. Lieutenant Commander Richard Coleman, Jasmine's immediate superior officer, led the group. Beside him were Lieutenant Daniela Rodriguez, a military lawyer, and Petty Officer 2nd Class Mark Williams, Jasmine's colleague. "I received your message, Taylor," Coleman said, approaching. The presence of the naval officers created a completely different atmosphere in the corridor. "What happened?" A daughter was physically assaulted by this security officer," Jasmine replied, indicating Brennan. "We have multiple videos of the incident." Rodriguez stepped forward. "I'm Lieutenant Rodriguez, Navy Legal Corps. I'd like to see those videos, if the students are willing to share them." Several students immediately stepped forward, offering their phone. Principal Thompson, realizing the situation was rapidly spiraling out of control, tried to intervene. "Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your concern, but this is an internal school matter. Let's all calm down." "And Mr. Thompson," said Coleman, his voice calm but authoritative, "when a dependent of a service member is assaulted, it ceases to be merely an internal matter. I suggest you cooperate fully, unless you prefer to discuss this with Naval Command and possibly civilian authorities." The hallway fell silent as Rodriguez and Williams reviewed the video. Brennan looked increasingly uncomfortable, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. Finally, Rodriguez turned to Jasmine. "These videos clearly show an unjustified assault. Sub-Officer Taylor, you have every right to file a formal complaint with both the school administration and civil authorities. We are here to support you in this process." What followed was a series of rapid events. Zoe, feeling better, rejoined the group, supported by Layla. Director Thompson, recognizing the seriousness of the situation, ordered Brennan to be immediately relieved of her duties. An ambulance was called to take Zoe to the hospital for a full examination at Jasmine's insistence. As Zoe was being taken to the ambulance, accompanied by her mother, something remarkable happened in the Lakeside High parking lot. Dozens of students had gathered, many holding makeshift signs with phrases like "Justice for Zoe" and "Safety for all students." Among them were young people of all races and social backgrounds, united in solidarity. The following week, Zoe Taylor's case became a turning point for Lakeside. What could have been just another ignored incident of discrimination turned into a catalyst for real change. Officer Brennan was fired and faced criminal charges of assaulting a minor. Principal Thompson announced a complete review of the school's disciplinary policy and the implementation of mandatory implicit bias training for all staff. For Jasmine, the incident reinforced her determination to fight not only for her daughter, but for all children facing similar injustice. Using her position in the Navy as a platform, she initiated a mentorship program connecting military personnel with high school, focusing especially on young people from marginalized communities. Zoe, recovered from her physical injury, found her voice as a student leader. The debate club, under her leadership, began to organize regular discussions about social justice and institutional reform. The incident that could have silenced her ended up amplifying her voice and strengthening her resolve. 3 months after the incident, Lakeside High School hosted a community event entitled Building Bridges. Jasmine, now promoted to Chief Petty Officer, was the keynote speaker, wearing her full uniform with her new rank insignia. "What happened to my daughter wasn't just an isolated incident," she told the packed auditorium. "It was a reflection of a system that frequently fails our young people, especially those from communities of color. But what I saw afterward, the solidarity of the students, the willingness of the school to acknowledge mistakes and change, the community coming together, that gives me hope." Jasmine paused, her eyes meeting Zoe's in the front row. "My daughter taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the determination to move forward despite it. And all of you students who stood by her, who recorded, who spoke out, who demanded justice, you demonstrated that real change happens when we refuse to be passive bystanders to injustice." In the audience, Layla squeezed Zoe's hand in silent support. Next to them was Ryan Matthew, the same boy involved in the original incident, who had surprisingly become an ally in the fight for change at the school. The experiences of the last few had brought about a transformation in him as well. forcing him to confront privileges he had never questioned before. The story of Jasmine and Zoe Taylor extended far beyond the walls of Lakeside High. Local newspapers covered the case, which eventually attracted national media attention. The image of Jasmine in her naval uniform, confronting injustice with dignity and determination, became a powerful. A photograph of her and Zoe holding hands on the school steps, exactly where the incident had occurred, was published in several major. For Jasmine, however, the most significant impact wasn't the media attention, but the concrete changes she witnessed. When the new school year began, Lakeside High had implemented a disciplinary board that included student and parent representatives. Security cameras were installed in all hallways. The security team underwent a complete overhaul, with new members selected after a rigorous process that included background checks and psychological evaluations. More importantly, the school's culture was changing. Discussions about race, privilege, and justice, once considered taboo or relegated to special events like Black History Month, were now part of the regular curriculum. Student clubs dedicated to social justice flourished. Lakeside High, once known primarily for its athletic achievements, was beginning to build a reputation as a model of inclusive and equitable education. One spring afternoon, almost a year after the incident, Jasmine was sitting at the kitchen table, reviewing documents for her upcoming leadership course in the Navy, when Zoe walked in with a radiant smile. "Mom, I did it! I got accepted into the summer program at Georgetown Law School." The journey of the past year, the incident that could have shattered her daughter's spirit, ended up triggering a transformation, not just in Zoe, but in the entire community. It had been painful, even traumatic, but from the ashes of that experience, something important had emerged. Jasmine's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Commander Coleman. "Taylor, I have news," he said after the initial greetings. "The pilot mentoring program you proposed? It has been approved for nationwide implementation. The Department of the Navy is allocating resources to expand it to 50 schools next." Jasmine had to lean on the kitchen counter, emotion overwhelming her. The program, which she had informally started in Lakeside, connected military personnel of various ranks with students in vulnerable communities, offering mentorship, academic support, and career guidance. "That's incredible, sir," she finally managed to say. "You did something extraordinary." Taylor Coleman continued. "You transformed a terrible situation into an opportunity for positive change. That's leadership at its highest level." After hanging up, Jasmine called Zoe to share the news. Together, they celebrated this new victory, knowing it was just another step on a much larger journey. In her diary that night, Jasmine wrote words that would later be quoted in her speech when, years later, she would become the first Black woman to achieve the rank of Master Chief Petty Officer. In her unit, "There are moments in life that define us, not by the obstacles we face, but by how we choose to respond to them. The day I saw my daughter fallen on those stairs could have consumed me with anger and bitterness. Instead, it became the catalyst for a greater purpose. I learned that justice isn't just about righting wrongs, but about transforming systems. And that real change begins when one person has enough courage to stand up and say this isn't right, and continues when others join in one by one until that lone voice becomes a chorus impossible to ignore." For Jasmine Taylor, the incident at Lakeside High would never be forgotten, but it wouldn't just be a painful scar either. It was a constant reminder of the power of a determined mother, a united community, and a courageous young woman who refused to let a moment of injustice define her future. While Zoe now dreamed of a career in law, inspired by her own experience, Jasmine continued her work in the Navy with a renewed sense of purpose. Each uniform she wore was a reminder not only of her commitment to the country, but of her responsibility to the next generation. On military bases across the country, stories about the sailor mom who stood up to an entire system for her daughter inspired others to do the same. Jasmine and Zoe Taylor's most important legacy, however, wasn't in the headlines or official programs, but in the individual lives they touched. In Layla, who decided to study public policy. In Ryan, he began to question and challenge the privilege he had grown up with. In the hallways of Lakeside High, where students now walked with the confidence that their voices mattered, the story of a mother who arrived with reinforcements 3 minutes after her daughter was pushed down the stairs became more than an isolated incident of confronting injustice. It became a symbol of how communities can unite, how individuals can catalyze systemic change, and of how, even in the darkest moments, the light of hope and transformation can emerge.